Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Freedom Adventure, the channel where we slowly, and one project at a time, convert a 2000 model Ford ambulance into a miniature Class C motorhome. If that premise right there is interesting to you, like and subscribe to the channel. There's tons of other videos that I've already released and videos to come that I think you'll really find intriguing. So today I'm here to talk about composting toilets, and in specific, we're talking about the Airhead toilet standing here in front of me. Now the model of this is the Airhead Tejo, and I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but for the sake of argument, that's what I'm going to go ahead and call it in this video. So the first question that comes to mind is, why would a person want a composting toilet? And to answer that question, there's actually quite a few reasons. In our particular build, we are very limited on space. Matter of fact, there's a finite amount of space. I've said it in many other videos. It's 8 feet wide, it's 14 feet long. We're just a little bit over 100 square feet, and actually less than that when you take into consideration everything that's in the camper itself. We have installed a gray water tank in this camper, and that alone was kind of, well, it had its challenges. The idea of mounting another tank in this, it's not insurmountable, but for the weekend getaways that we plan on using this thing for, something a little bit more simple was kind of in our gun sights. So what we started looking for were composting toilets. Now, in the past, both my wife and I both have agreed that we thought that these things were pretty well disgusting. But the only thing that is more disgusting, or was more disgusting to us at that point, was the idea of emptying out a black tank. And I'm sorry, man, it really just grosses me out. I don't know why. It's bad enough to deal with a gray tank. When you're at a dump station, it's bad enough to deal with that. But the idea of a black tank, I'm out. So we decided to start doing some research on different composting toilets. We checked out online. Mostly what we did was, of course, YouTube videos. And there are definitely some videos out there that go way more in depth on this thing, including the process of cleaning this thing out when it's time to dispose of its contents. I'm going to spare you that. No way, no how, that's not going to happen, not in this video. But seriously, why go with a composting toilet? Well, there's different applications, and in ours, and like I said, for simplicity's sake, that's one reason right there. Now, if you're off-grid, or if you're in a cabin where you don't have a septic, that's another one. And that's also something that we're looking at doing, is go ahead and purchasing some off-grid property. And up front, it's very possible that we might end up purchasing another one of these things in order to use while we're building our cabin, or perhaps even before the septic gets installed. The property we're looking at is really rocky, like there's boulders everywhere, and it's well, there's a slight possibility that we may not be able to use a traditional septic because of the boulders and the rocks that are in the soil. Also, in all fairness, this thing is rather expensive for what it is, but it's a fraction of the price of installing a septic system, so let's not overlook that fact either. So when you do a Google search on composting toilets, what you're going to find is a lot of different options that are out there. For instance, there's the Nature's Head, which seems to be one of the more popular ones. And we did look at those, and they are sold actually on Amazon, which is a great benefit because, let's face it, everybody likes Amazon shipping. It's the name we trust when it comes to getting us things next day, hell, even some days on the same day. But there was a few things about the Nature's Head that I wasn't really liking that much, and that's why ultimately we chose to go with this one, and I'm going to get to those reasons here in a minute. But just kind of going over the overview of why a person might want one of these, we're talking cost, we're talking the size of it, simplicity of emptying out, you don't have to mess with a black tank, and something also to mention is these are portable. Like, all you have to do is disconnect them and you can take them somewhere. For instance, you can go from your camper van to your cabin, you can go from your cabin or your vehicle over to a boat, and so on and so forth, and pretty much any combination of those that you could imagine. When it comes right down to it, if you're in a tiny cabin situation or even an off-grid property type of deal, one thing you might take into consideration is water is at a premium. For instance, the properties that my wife and I are looking at right now down in the Kiamichi Wilderness here in Oklahoma, these are off-grid properties. So any water that you've got up there, you've got to bring with you. And if you don't bring it with you, you're going to have to rely on other sources for water, like, say, for instance, rainwater collection systems coming off the roof of your home and into a containment unit. Now, where am I going with that? This uses no water. So right back to the point, why is the Airhead Tejo sitting here in front of me rather than another brand? And I've got a few different reasons for that. Probably the biggest single reason that we went with the Airhead Tejo rather than, like, say, for instance, the Nature's Head. And I'm going to use the Nature's Head as an example when I do a comparison on this thing quite a bit, because it seems to be one of the two most popular, probably Nature's Head and then probably the Airhead. I don't know which one comes first, but we're going to say that those are at least two of the most popular units out there. The reason I went with this particular stool was because it just looks traditional. Like, for instance, when you look at the Nature's Head, it's kind of blocky. It looks like something that you'd see on Minecraft. It just doesn't look like a toilet to me. And I know that's silly, but it means something to me. I wanted something that looked like a real toilet. I just wanted something that looked real. And Airhead does actually a pretty good job with this. For instance, it's got the lid on the top. It's got the regular, the lid that you sit on. It doesn't do a bad job of looking like a stool. The only thing, of course, that it's missing is the water containment unit here on the back. Overall, it just looks really good. Now, I will say that the one thing that kind of caught my eye on this, and I do like on the Nature's Head stool a little bit better than this, is on this one here, the agitator is basically just this crank handle that you see. I actually like the spider style handle on the Nature's Head a little bit more than that, but you know, it is what it is. Overall, I still like this one better in terms of the way that it looks. Another reason that a person might go with this is there are some things about it that are really pretty neat when it comes to functionality. Now, again, we're in a small camper, and I don't know what you would be planning on purchasing this for. Maybe it's a boat, maybe it's a camper, maybe it's a cabin, who knows? But if you're in an RV situation where you have like a wet bath, for instance, and we don't have that, but there is a possibility, the way our shower and bathroom set up, that this could get wet. And this unit, I think, will do really well in a wet bath situation. There's a couple things here that I'll show you that would lend themselves that way. For instance, if this thing just gets soaked, if it's in a shower, for instance, it's not going to hurt it. There's only one hole on the side of this thing that you might have to guard, and it's a little vent hole on the back side of this, which I'll show you here in just a little bit. But if you look at it, the bottom part of the lid here has got a rubber seal going around the edge of it. And then, of course, this one has also got the same rubber seal, and this does two things. One, it seals out odors. Two, it seals out water. So when you've got this thing closed, it's going to seal it up. Odor shouldn't get out of there, and it also has an electric fan that I'll go over here in a minute as well, which is going to aid with that. But first and foremost, I'm not saying it's waterproof, but it's definitely a good candidate if you're going to have it in a wet bath type of situation. So at this point, we've got the way that it looks, and also a little bit of functionality when it comes to the rubber seals on the lids in order to keep the thing dry, in order to keep outside water out of the stool. Another thing is these things have a little 12-volt fan that run all the time. And what they do is they pull a negative vacuum off of the inside of the stool and they vent it outside of your vehicle. And when I say vehicle, just try to remember, if this is a cabin, your vehicle could be the cabin in this instance. Bottom line, it takes the funk and it blows it outside of your vessel, whether it be a cabin or an RV, doesn't matter, or a boat. So that 12-volt fan pulls a negative vacuum on this and blows it outside. Now in this particular stool, that 12-volt fan is remote. So you plug a hose into the back of this, it pulls the vacuum, and the fan is actually wherever you mount it on the wall in order to get rid of it. So the fan itself is not attached to the stool, and on the Nature's Head, it is. I know that's little, and it probably works the same either way you look at it, but at the end of the day, it still looks a little odd to me to have it bolted to the side of your stool. Once again, this just looks more like what I'm accustomed to seeing a toilet look like. When you're in limited space, another thing to consider is kind of the footprint. For instance, in ours, this is going to go inside of where our shower is, and as you can see, the bottom part of this thing, the only thing I could kind of liken it to is a 5-gallon bucket when it comes to the footprint that this actually takes up. Actually, no, I could compare this to a 5-gallon bucket in a lot of different ways, but I don't want to take anything away from what Airhead has going here. But in terms of the footprint, it's about the same. So you've got this bowl portion here that sticks out a little bit from the actual base of it itself, but when you're in a small area, every square inch counts. So if this thing were the entire width of this unit, it's going to take up a lot more footprint than this one here does. Slim design is everything. One, it looks better, and two, of course, you get a little bit more room for feet. Now, the Tejo offers something that, as far as I'm aware, no other composting toilet does, or at least none others that I've seen anyway. And when we first started doing the composting toilet search, a lot of these things have a liquid tank that goes here on the front. And the liquid tank is for liquid, and basically there's a diverter in here to where when you use the restroom, the liquids go to the front, the solids go into the base of it. But the fact of the matter is you have a pretty good sized liquid tank up front here, and my understanding is that some of the older models, that tank was actually see-through, and that is just terrible. Nobody, like literally nobody, wants to look at that, myself included. Some of the other ones, or the newer designs, I guess, were opaque, kind of like the tank here on the bowl itself. But again, what you've got to do is take that tank off, take it somewhere to dispose of it, somewhere of your choosing, obviously. And that I just didn't like the idea of, not at all. So what the Tejo does is it's got a little valve over here on the side, right here. And this goes to a 3/4 inch hose, which then drains down to wherever you want to drain it to. And wherever you want to drain it to could be a 5-gallon jug. It could be a gray tank, it could be wherever you want to route this thing to. But the most important thing to take into consideration here, there isn't a liquid tank on the front. One, it looks much, much better. Two, you don't have to pick up a liquid tank and go dispose of it. Now, you're still going to have to take your liquid tank, but you could put that tank wherever you want. But with me, it's about cosmetics. I don't want to see that. It's bad enough that we have to be in a situation to use the composting toilet to begin with. However, I don't want to think about it any more than I have to. And every time I walk in the restroom and see this big honking liquid tank sitting off the front of it, it's just not appealing. So the Tejo definitely came into our sights when we discovered that. Now, regarding composting toilets, obviously there's some drawbacks. No different than a black tank situation is going to have its own drawbacks by itself. At the end of the day, you still have to dispose of this stuff. Not a big deal. It's just part and parcel of what you're doing here in the RV life. It's just part of it, guys. So the first and the most obvious thing that's going to be considered a drawback, in my opinion, is simply the fact that you have to empty this. Now, obviously, your liquid tank is remote. It's not here on the stool, as we just discussed, but the solids you do have to get rid of. Now, what they do is they provide you with media that you kind of soak in water and you put it into the bucket here, and that acts as an absorbent to soak up everything that goes in there. At some point, however, you're going to have to empty that. So I watched a few videos where these people have done that, and they literally did it on camera. Not something, once again, I'm going to show you guys, but they did it on this YouTube video. And as much as it kind of was gross, at the same time, it's the reality of it. And it just kind of goes further into showing you how this unit actually works. That to me is a drawback of it. But when you compare it to emptying a black tank, I don't know. I don't know which one's worse. To me, this one's not as bad as the black tank, but again, that's all kind of personal preference as well. The second thing, and most of the advertisements that I've seen on these state that if you're a guy, you're gonna basically have to sit down in order to take care of business. And I've also read about a lot of other things saying that if you're a guy, you could stand up while you take care of your business. But I'm gonna say no deeper than the top portion of this is, you're probably better off sitting down. If not, the female in your life is probably going to be cussing you, because I just don't see any way that that's going to be all that feasible without making some sort of mess here, not with the depth of this anyway. Definite disadvantage, but it's still something, you know, a guy could work around, right? It's not that big of a deal. One other disadvantage that I've heard of, and again, this comes from another video that we've watched. Like I said, there's a 12-volt fan that pulls a negative pressure on this, and that's very, very important, because what it's doing is it's pulling air from the inside of your vehicle into the side of this unit and then expelling that air out of the back. But it keeps a constant airflow moving, and that does a couple things. One, it keeps the funk out of your vehicle, blows the funk out of the vehicle itself. Number two, it keeps moisture from building up in the tank. So why is that a negative? Well, if that fan should die on you, and it is possible, it's just an electric motor, and it's a very small one at that. I'll show it to you here momentarily. But what it looks like, if you're familiar with them, is just a little 12-volt fan out of the back of an old desktop, personal computer. It's not big, it is very effective, but if that thing dies, they're very quiet. You may not hear it go bad, and if that happens, moisture can build up in this tank and mold can take place. So do your homework, guys. Check the fan every now and then, make sure it's working. You don't want mold building up. The way I understand it from one particular video I watched was it was really, really difficult to get rid of the mold, and I'm not 100% sure that they ever got it. Again, is it something you could live around? I think I can deal with it. A lot of people couldn't, so maybe the black tank might be the way to go for you if that's the case. This is the one we chose. These are a few reasons why we chose the Airhead Tejo. Is it the best one out there? I think it is for us. Maybe it's not for everybody, but that's why we went with this particular, was cosmetics, the fact that you could put it in a wet environment without any damage to the unit itself, doesn't use water, and the fact that there's no liquid tank visible on the unit itself, and it's just appealing, or more appealing cosmetically anyway. Not saying a toilet looks great to begin with, but hey man, at least it looks more like a traditional toilet instead of a block or a square just sitting there in your restroom. So I just wanted to give you kind of a tour of the unit itself and show you how it's constructed and some things I like about it, a couple things that I don't as well. As you can see, like I said, it looks fairly close to a real toilet, only it's missing the water tank here on the back. Cosmetically, it looks more traditional to me. Now, the first thing you'll see here is, or not really the first thing, but the first thing I'm going to point out is the bucket section of it right here. It's got little carrying handles, and these things are pretty robust. They're pretty good sized, and this is how you carry the tank when you're moving it from one location to the other. Down here on the bottom, this is the agitator handle, and what this does is it moves kind of a, I don't know how to describe it, it's like a bent up piece of metal that's on the inside, and this agitates what the contents are, and we all know what that is, but it agitates the contents to enable it to compost a little bit better. So on both sides of this, you've got brackets. And these two brackets tighten to the side of it, tighten and snug down, and these brackets screw down to the floor of your vehicle, your cabin, or wherever you've got it mounted. And that is what's supposed to keep this thing stable to where when you sit on it, it doesn't rock back and forth. Honestly, I've got some doubts about that. I'm 210 pounds. This looks kind of flimsy. It probably works fine. It probably works great, but I will have to see that in action to truly believe that this thing is going to be stable, especially when the front of this sits so far off the base. Balance-wise, it looks improbable, but we're going to find that out here soon enough. All right, toilet seat lid. There you go. This is your rubber seal that goes around it, keeps water out of the stool, and here's the lid portion that a person would sit on. And as you can see, it's also got the rubber seal under here as well. Now, when you look inside of this, you can see there's a flap here. This enables the solids to go into the bottom. And then of course this ring around here, and it's got a separate drain right there for the liquids. Liquids hit up front, I'll go to the separate drain. Those liquids then eventually come out of this, which is the drain pipe to your liquid tank, wherever it is, but it is going to be mounted remotely with the Airhead Tejo. Something that's kind of cool about this is, and this is something I thought about, is when you disconnect this, are you going to have liquid spill everywhere? And the answer to that question is no, you're not. Because when you disconnect this, it's a quick disconnect, it comes loose, and as you can see right there, there's a little valve that as soon as you disconnect, that valve enables and whatever liquid is left in the line is going to stay in the line. This also seals up. I'm not saying you won't have any spillage at all, but this is going to absolutely minimize that. When you're done, you pop it back into place. Just makes the removal of the unit obviously a little bit easier as well. When you take that out, you also have to disconnect, of course, the vacuum hose as well. But this is easily movable. You just loosen the brackets down here, disconnect the hose and this hose, and you can move the unit wherever you want. This little handle right here opens up the flap, as you can see right here. Flap closed, flap open. This, I believe, is probably a device that enables the funk to stay where the funk is supposed to stay. Now, these little knobs on the side, and I believe I've already got these kind of loose right now. I was fooling around with this last night. Those you twist and the whole top of this comes off. So when I was talking about the agitator, that metal piece right here is the agitator. It simply rotates the contents so once again it could break down and compost like it's supposed to. Since this is off of here, we could also go ahead and take another look at it. You've got the lid, flips up, you've got the secondary lid. Here's the bowl itself. Okay, so this little connection that you see here, this goes to the hose that the vacuum hooks to and pulls the negative pressure on the tank. As you can see, it just kind of slides in position, and it's got a little rubber O-ring right here that seals that up. One thing I really don't understand here, and I'm having a hard time with this, is why wouldn't they just put threads on this to where that screws into place and there you go, you're done. They didn't do that though. They put an O-ring, and it, in theory, should seal, but if this moves, this is going to move as well. So their answer to that was to take this and put it on the inside of the tank like this, as you see, with this little ring falling right in there, and then you glue this down. And I just really don't understand the logic behind that. Why make you glue that when they could have just made this to where you can screw that in? I don't know, but that's what they did. Again, it's not the end of the world, but if we're talking about things I like and things that I don't like about this unit, I don't like that. When you look over here, and I'm going to put this back on the top of the base. When you turn this around, this is where the air enters, and it's got a little screen here, but the air actually enters here. Like I said, it pulls the vacuum on the contents, so it pulls the air through here and then takes the air from the inside of the unit and vents it out this direction. Now, why they wouldn't just have a separate hose going to another outside source of air, I don't know. I kind of wonder what would happen here if you lost the power to your fan, or if your fan died for whatever reason. Then you've got the compost material in here that could easily vent out here into your room. The way I understand it is the media that you use with this is the smell that does come about. It smells more like a wet, kind of like wet mulch, for instance. It's not really supposed to smell like what you think compost might smell like, but it smells more earthy in nature. Either way, I don't want that in my camper. This I wonder about, and it's possible in the future I may do a modification using another hose kind of similar to this, to where it pulls outside air in and then blows that funky air out. Again, that would be a project for later, but I do question that. I'm not a designer, I'm certainly no engineer, but that does make me wonder. The hose that hooks up to the back of this, they give you what appears to be probably, I don't know, maybe about 4 feet of hose, and what we've got here is just, it looks like hose that you might see on a swimming pool. This slides in, kind of screws into position, and ultimately presses in there. This piece is going to be a connection piece, and I believe you're supposed to cut this hose in half, or at least into 2 pieces, and the length is up to you. It just depends on your application. But the hose is going to basically go into this connection. Okay, so you've got this, you've got this. You run a hose from here to here. Once again, we've got another screen there, which is going to keep little bugs or anything from the outside from getting inside of your toilet. Obviously, this has to vent to the outside. This, you got another hose that goes from here to the outside. Basically, this is a quick disconnect. When you've got a hose here, you simply put that together and your toilet's hooked up. When it comes time to move the toilet out of the way, let's say you park it in a shower and you need to take a shower, you disconnect this, you disconnect your liquids tube, you lift the unit out and you put it wherever you want while you're in there taking a shower, and then of course you could put it back later. Things I like about this unit: it looks traditional. You got the rubber seals, got a pretty solid handle here. Let's say you've got to transport this around. Man, that's just kind of gross. I don't really want to look down in there and see whatever might be in there. So they give you this lid, and this lid is for transport. Now you simply go ahead and put your lid on there. It's airtight, it's watertight. You can take this and dump it wherever you need to if you've got to walk a distance to do it. At least you're not walking around with the top of this off displaying to the world what's in there. This is the fan that comes with the unit itself. So as you can see, we've got the little computer fan here on the back. This would mount somewhere on the wall, and you can put this, it really just depends where you want to put it, but it's got to be somewhere on the wall to vent outside. The hose, as you can see, it's got a little bit of thread in here, and the hose is going to go into that. If it's me, I'm probably going to go ahead and put a little bit of sealant in there, and it's got a couple of set screws right here and right here, which are going to go ahead and lock that hose into place. It didn't say to do it, or if it did, I have not seen it in the instructions, but I will use some sealant of some kind, dicor, silicone, something, any kind of caulk that I could think of to go ahead and seal that up. This does have a rubber seal that seals to the wall, and looks like that'll be, you know, plenty adequate. One thing I will bring up here, and it's because it happened to me, but I ordered this unit quite some time ago. In the meantime, I've been moving it around, storing it here, storing it over there, and it's not been in the box, it's just been in the camper itself, and it has been getting jostled around from place to place. Things happen. And it did. Somewhere along the way, this got a little bit of scarring right here on this edge, and because of that, it's kind of taken on a little bit of a stain. So this is fairly smooth, but it's not porcelain smooth, but if you scrape this, it is raw plastic. So it will take on a stain since it is a lighter color. And unfortunately, that stain is kind of a brownish yellow color, which is kind of nasty when it comes to a toilet, right? So I may end up taking like a magic eraser and seeing if that'll come off. I don't know, but like I said, just something to take into consideration. It would be nice if they offered this in like another color. Maybe not black, but perhaps kind of like maybe a light gray color, kind of like this hose right here, for instance. That's about all I've got for you here today regarding this. This is just kind of not really an unboxing, but just kind of a quick overview, some first impressions of the unit, things I like, things I don't like. Really, the only thing I don't like about this so far is, like I said, the color of it itself does make it a little susceptible to, if it gets scraped, it can get stained. That's definite drawback to me. And of course, the obvious thing I don't like as well is the fact that every so often, you're going to have to empty this, but that's going to go for any composting toilet out there. That doesn't change for any of them. To me, it's better to have this option than it is a black tank, but again, that's kind of up to you and just whatever appeals to you. If you've got a camper or an RV and you're running a composting toilet, tell me what you guys are using. This is, like I said, this is probably on the more expensive end of the spectrum. It did come with rave reviews. There's a real following for this thing out there. Everybody that's got them seems to really like them. But on the other hand, in all fairness, so does Nature's Head. So once again, do you like the way it looks? What are you guys using for your composting toilets? Let me know what you think and what's worked for you. I'd love to hear them in the comments. Well, I think that's enough toilet talk here for tonight. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you here tonight. Happy adventures, folks, and I hope to see you back soon. Take care, y'all.